Okay, so Lavan chased after Jacob and accused him of deceiving him and stealing his gods. And he made an entire search of Jacob's premises and found absolutely nothing. And this is chapter 31, verse 36 on page 351. This is the speech that Jacob gave at the when he finally expresses himself. Sentiments that he has been holding, repressing for many years. And I wanted to go through it again just to pick up a few details that we went through quickly yesterday. Then Jacob became angered, and he took up his grievance with Lavan. Jacob spoke up and said to Lavan, this is 4 verbs indicating the speech. It gives the speech a tremendous amount of weight. What is my transgression? What is my sin that you pursued me? You rummaged through all my objects. What did you find of yours? Where did the stolen material? That's the climb which, although Lavan makes it last, this is the most important one for Jacob to defend himself. Because this is the only one that is an objective crime agreed to by everybody. Lavan and his friends and allies and Jacob's children and Jacob's servants, everybody agrees that stealing is wrong. If he can't defend himself against that, then everything else he says will be worthless. He says, okay, you investigate it and you see that it isn't true. Now, as far as my status with you is concerned, 20 years I've been with you, and you did not suffer any of the normal losses that one would have from flocks and from a legally responsible shepherd. No miscarriages. I didn't take any wages, sustenance from the flock. That which was mauled by animals, which I could have claimed was an onus, I did not exempt myself. I paid you for it. By day and night, I didn't rest. 20 years. I worked 40 years for your 2 daughters. Now, he doesn't say it, but it's quite obvious. It was supposed to be 7 for 1. It wasn't supposed to be 14 for 2. You cost me that. And 6 years for your flocks. Now, I don't know if I said this to you when that happened or I forgot to say it. At the end of the 14 years, Jacob says, I've paid my debts, I'm going to go home. And Lavan says, I've guessed that I've been blessed by you. He said there it was because he had children. He didn't have children before that. Please stay. And Jacob says, name your wages, whatever you want. Jacob says, I have nothing to provide for my family, and they make a deal. Why did Jacob stay? Why did he simply say, no, goodbye? Why did he leave then? There's a really deep thing going on here. The answer that I thought of myself, and others confirmed to me that it could be an acceptable answer, is hakar satov, gratitude. After all, Lavan took him in. Okay, he took him in and said, work! From the moment he came in, he started working, but he took him in. The Torah has very, I think, intuitively extravagant standards for hakar satov. So, for example, there are certain rules for different nations that want to convert to Judaism. When, or if at all, after they convert, they can intermarry with naturally born Jews. Some say never, and some say after a certain number of generations. An Egyptian, it's the 3rd generation, can intermarry with naturally born Jews. And the Torah tells us, Ki ger hayisa b'artzo. You were a temporary resident in their land. Now, if you think about it, the Egyptians didn't do us any favors. First of all, when Joseph came in, when Joseph's family came in, they were the nobility of the land. Joseph gave the land salvation, the land as a whole, otherwise it would have starved to death. And he made Paro rich, fabulously wealthy, made him the legal owner of the whole kingdom. So they didn't do Joseph any favor, nor Joseph's family any favor when they took them in and treated them well. They benefited gigantically from Joseph. And then after that, they made him into slaves. So we don't really owe them anything. They didn't do anything really good for us. But they took us in. They took us in. Therefore, the law is makel in their case. Third generation can already marry in, others can't. So here you say, Lavan took him in, made him work the whole time, and switched his wages. Yeah, but he took him in. And that's not something you can just dismiss. You can't ignore that. So I think that's it. But now, Lavan asked him for a favor, and Jacob does him that favor out of showing him gratitude, and yet Lavan is prepared to cheat him and prepared to take everything back. So he's expressing here how over the top, let's say, Jacob was in dealing with him. And you changed my wage 10 times. Now, had not the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the dread of Isaac been with me, you would surely now have sent me away empty-handed. That's what he says. And as we'll see in the continuation, Lavan unwittingly confirms exactly what Jacob is saying here. But I want to comment on a little detail here. Look down at Rashi in 42. The dread of Isaac, Pachad Yitzhak. So he's speaking of the God of his father and grandfather. But with respect to Abraham, he says God, Elokei. And with respect to Yitzhak, he doesn't say Elokei. He says Pachad Yitzhak. Now we actually speak of all the patriarchs as giving their name to a designation for God, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. We do speak of Elokei Yitzchak. But Yaakov didn't do that. The question is, why not? Rashi says, he did not want to say God of Isaac, for the Holy One, blessed be He, does not associate His name over the righteous during their lifetimes. Elokei Ploni would only be after Ploni has died, not while he's alive. Why not? And even though God said to Jacob upon his departure from Beersheba, I am Hashem, the God of Abraham your father, and God of Isaac, and Isaac was alive at that time. So what are you telling me that here, many years later, he doesn't want to speak of the God of Isaac because Isaac is still alive, and over there, God himself did call him the God of Isaac because his eyes had dimmed, he had lost his sight, and it is as if he is dead. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu could testify. He's not functional anymore, and therefore I'm going to put my name on him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu could do that. But Yaakov was afraid to do that, and therefore he didn't say it. Now, you read this and you think, there's something deep going on here that's not on the surface. What does it mean, you call God by the God of so-and-so? What does that mean? What significance does it have that it plays such an important role here? So I'll give you a little background for this. There's a midrash that says that Dovid HaMelech said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, are known as God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob. Why only those three? Why is it such an exclusive club? Okay, he didn't say that. He didn't say that. Right? I also want to be part of the club. I want you to be known as Elokei Dovid. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Dovid, I tested them, and they passed the tests. So Dovid said, test me. So Kodesh Baruch Hu said, you're on. That was the test of Bathsheba, and David failed. Kodesh Baruch Hu said, see, that's why I'm God of Abraham and Jacob, and I'm not the God of David, because they passed the test and you failed the test. Okay, so something in these tests that they stood, and they're passing the test, justifies this name. And now already, even before I get to the details, you understand a little bit what Rashi says here. If a person's still alive, you don't know that he won't deteriorate. Maybe he passed the test up until now, and he'll fail the next test. He'll take a step backwards. That's why you wouldn't want to associate the name with a person while he's still alive. Akadosh Baruch Hu did call himself Elokei Yitzhak while Yitzhak was still alive, because he was blind. He ceased to be functional in a way that could compromise his passing of the test that he had passed. Because Baruch Hu could say that because he could know it. Yaakov, even though he heard HaKadosh Baruch Hu say those words, he didn't want to say them on his own. Yaakov didn't want to say, my father's, gone. So he used another expression, Pachad Yitzchak, because that was a relationship that Yitzchak had to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, relationship of Yira, of Pachad. Now, what exactly is meant by the Midrash? What concept is it conveying? We have an idea which we all take for granted, but in a certain sense it's very radical. The Gemara says there is a mitzvah to be similar to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to have HaKadosh Baruch Hu's characteristics, so to speak. Mahu rachum, afator rachum. Just as he is merciful, so you too should be merciful. Mahu chanun, afator chanun. Just as he's gracious, you too should be gracious. Others, Rambam has Mahu kadosh, afatar kadosh. Just as he is holy, you too should be holy. So we're used to this, and we say this, and those who grew up in religious households say it when they're 9 years old, we all take it for granted. Shouldn't be taken for granted. Not at all. For example, suppose you had been told the opposite. Suppose you had been told you have an infinite creator who's not spiritual. Chas v'sholom, because Baruch Hu is not spiritual. He's totally beyond spirituality. As much as he's beyond physicality, he's also beyond spirituality. Physicality and spirituality are aspects of the world that are created by him, not aspects of him. And since he's infinite and you're finite, and since he's creator and you're created, and he has no characteristics, anything like your characteristics, therefore you can't resemble him at all in any way. Suppose you had been told that. I know what you would have done. You'd have nodded your heads, of course, sure, right, obvious, correct, no question about it. You'd have understood it without a single protest. Now that you're told the opposite, you ought to think, gee, if I had been told we have nothing in common, I would have taken that for granted. So now that I'm being told we have in common, I should be surprised. And you should be surprised. Mahu afata? What kind of comparison is that? Because he is Q, you too should be Q? If someone said that to me as responsibility, listen, he's Q, you be Q. I said, are you kidding? What kind of responsibility is that? I should be like God? And the Torah says yes. Yes. This is part of what's communicated when it says we're made b'tselem Elokim. Tselem Elokim, the Rambam points out the word tselem has no visual connotations, not God's image. Tselem means something like an essence, something like the most essential quality. And because we are created with something like that essential quality, the Torah is telling us that we do share, for which we should be shocked. Tselem Elokim. And then, if we do share that kind of essence in some way, then maybe we can have at least coordinated, associated characteristics. Okay, so that means that a human being can have God-like characteristics. God-like in the sense of like the characteristics of God. He can have that. Okay, now imagine a person whose life is so godly in that respect that you could say to, let's say, a non-Jew who never heard of Judaism, doesn't know anything about it, and he says, what is your conception of God? Say, I'll tell you what, Go look at Abraham. Watch him. Observe him. Talk to him. And you'll get some idea of what God is like. Because Abraham is a godly person. Because he has God-like characteristics. He fulfills this mitzvah of acquiring God-like characteristics. There are three people in the history of the world through whom you could communicate godliness, you could communicate a picture of what God is by examining them. That's what's meant, this is my understanding, that's what's meant by saying that God is God of Abraham. It means Abraham represents godliness in the world to the extent that you could learn a great deal about God by studying Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and nobody else. And nobody else, not even Moses, who was greater than the patriarchs in prophecy, but not in this respect. And David wanted to be number 4, because in certain respects David is number 4 to the patriarchs, but not in this respect. Not in this respect. No one in history, before or since, was able to match that distinction. So, since that's what that conveys, certainly you don't want to apply it to someone when there's still a chance that something will go wrong. Now you understand why the custom that Tanakh would never apply it to someone when he was still alive. And now Rashi had to explain why God himself applied it to Yitzhak when he was alive. He said because there wasn't any chance of anything going wrong. And that's why Yaakov didn't want to say it about his father. So here's a little bit of background for what's going on here. You have a question?
Isn't there a concept, too, of that Adam was created for the purpose of being like God? Or that, I guess, man was created for the purpose of being like God, then?
Well, I think that's right. I mean, I think Adam, the Zohar says that in the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you had packed in all 613 commandments. I mean, in some way that you could describe it perhaps a little bit, but I'm not going to do it now unless you force me. And that means the mitzvah of being like God certainly was there also, but it would have to be on the basis of performance. And as you know well, Adam had a catastrophic failure, and therefore, in toto, he didn't accomplish it. Right?
But still, not to be separate from the mitzvah, but the concept itself of just being made like God, or I guess, I don't know, maybe the phrase would be maybe being made in the image of God, or something would apply here. Is that a concept that we would say?
Is that a concept? What?
That we would claim.
Well, again, let's go back over it again, because I just spoke about that. The verse in Rashis says that we are made b'tselem Elokim. Now, I said image isn't the right word, because image is a visual term. That would have to mean that God has arms and legs and hair and and feet and toes and toenails and so on. That's not our view. But the Rambam in the first chapter of the guide points out that the word tselem in Tanakh has no visual connotations. It's not tmuna, it's not toar, it's tselem. Tselem means something like possessing as essential quality, right? So, and he talks about what that essential quality is and so on and so on. But it's not. But it does mean that we have something in common with God. Absolutely, that's stated explicitly in that verse that we do share some common quality with God, and that common quality makes it possible for us to acquire other common qualities as well. That's the medium through which we do that.
Do we know that quality? What the quality is?
There's a lot of discussion about it. Let's leave it at that. Because if I say one, then it'll sort of take the position, and people want to push.
We said Abraham somehow, no?
What's that?
We said Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob. They do. We can learn from them that sell them like in.
No, I didn't say that. No, I said you can learn the other qualities that the Tzelem enables you to acquire, like mercy, like graciousness, like holiness, and so forth and so on. I didn't say you could learn the Tzelem. As the Tzelem enables us to fulfill the mitzvah. The Tzelem is given. The other qualities we have to work on and accomplish. Okay, so that's one thing I wanted to point out to you about this speech of it. Okay, so now Jacob comes to the end of his speech. 43. Now, listen. Look at Lavan's response. The utter.
Megalomania?
Well, there's megalomania there, but there's degradation of his response. Lavan spoke up and said the same words as Jacob. Vaya'an vayomer. You made your speech. I also have a speech. The daughters are my daughters, and the sons are my sons, and the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. I told you he was like the king of Sodom. Here it is in black and white. Fellow, what do you mean they're yours? Didn't you charge 14 years' work for your daughters? What do you mean they're yours? You took the money, didn't you? You changed his wages 10 times, and forces beyond your control caused him to give birth to the ones that went to him. It's yours? It's really yours? How's that? How do you manage that? And then when Jacob said, if I had not run, if I had not fled, you would have stolen it all from me? He's saying it. It's all mine. Of course I would have taken it from you. Of course I wouldn't have let you go. His first introduction when he made his claims against Jacob is, if you had told me you were going, we would have made a celebration with lyre and timbrel. You know, we'd have all had fluted glasses of wine, and we'd have had a wonderful time. I sent you off with blessings and so on and so on. Now he says, oh, this is mine. So he was lying before. He doesn't even realize. He's doing this in front of his own Confederates. What does he look like? He's oblivious. He's oblivious. Like a child. He says what pleases him at the moment, like Putin does. Right? Let me just go through this, and then I'll come back to the questions, right? Now he says, yet to my daughters, what can I do to them to this day, or to their children whom they have born? Really? Really? What could you do to them? Seems to me 2 pages ago you said, Yesh le'el yodi la'asosi mechem ra. I have in the power of my hand to do evil with you. Imachem plural. Speaking to Jacob, not to you, to all of you. I could destroy all of you. That's what you said 2 pages ago. And now you say, oh, these are my children. And would I do anything to my children and grandchildren? Oh, yes, you would. If the God of Jacob had not come to him and said, don't speak to good or evil, don't threaten, don't interfere, you certainly would have. But he's lying. He's lying straight through his teeth. So now, come, let us make a covenant, I and you, and he shall be a witness between me and you. Now, I want to check here, 44. Who's going to be the witness? There's nobody else here. So Rashi says right away, and they capitalize it here, right? The Holy One, blessed be He. Remember, as somebody said this yesterday, it was 100% correct. He is an idol worshiper. He's a polytheist. He doesn't deny the Jewish God. He just doesn't deny other gods also. And he respects all of them. And he knows it was a Jewish God that came to him and told him not to threaten Yaakov, and he's paying attention to that. And he's saying to Jacob, let's make an agreement, and the God whom we both believe in should be the witness between us that we're going to keep it. And I have other commitments as well, but this is one thing we share, so we'll make the commitment together. Now watch this. I mean, if you read it, it's almost astonishing. Jacob took a stone and raised it up as a monument. This is going to be like a symbol of the agreement. And Jacob said to his brethren, gather stones. So they took stones and made a mound, and they ate there on the mound. Eating a meal is a way of sealing an agreement. It carries a certain solemnity. Now it's interesting. Lavan called it Yagar Sahadusa, which is Aramaic, which indicates that that's the language that he naturally spoke. And Jacob called it Gal Eid. Gal means a pile, and Eid means witness. Now, Lavan declared, this mound is a witness between me and you today. Jacob made it. Hello. But Lavan is then naming it, right? He's in charge. Lavan's in charge. Lavan is the authority. He's, everything's with about what he says. And the mitzvah is a place that you see, it's like an observation site. And it says here that Hashem will keep watch between me and you, for we will be out of each other's sight. You're going your way, I'm going my way. If you will ill-treat my daughters. Oh, here's the solicitous father. Father is so concerned for the welfare of his daughters. If you will ill-treat my daughters, or if you will marry wives in addition to my daughters, you see how much I care about my daughters? I'm forcing you to take an oath that you're not going to ill-treat them. He's the one who said Jacob must have taken them away like captives of the sword, when Jacob treated them with the most exquisite care and concern and honor. And now he comes in as their savior. Oh, you could ill-treat my daughters. Take more wives. Jacob came for one. You pushed the second one on him. They had trouble with reproduction, so they asked him to take more. Jacob would never have dreamt of taking more. We don't live like that. I know you were going to build a harem. You're rich now. I'm telling you can't. And then, let's say he would. So what? Who are you to tell him what to do? As you said, the megalomania here, it's like beyond belief, right? Now, okay, got it now. Look at 51. And Lavan said to Jacob, here is this mound, and here is this monument, which I have cast between me and you. Hello, who made the mound? Jacob made the mound. Hello? No, I made it. I set it up. I'm everything. I do everything. Nothing else counts. Everybody's witness to this. Everybody saw Jacob do it. Doesn't matter. I did it. The guy is just beyond belief. This mound shall be witness to the monument, shall be witness that I may not cross over to you. Past this mountain, you're going to cross over past me for evil. No. And they swear an oath. So this gives you a picture of this Lavan. And without this meeting, without this testimony, I don't think anybody would have understood what it says in Deuteronomy chapter 28. Arami aved avi, there was an Aramian who wanted to destroy my father. And he went down to Egypt, which I told you a few days ago. That Aramian is Lavan. It says Lauren Havrami 6 times in this story. Aramian. Wanted to destroy Jacob? Okay, he was money grubbing. Okay, he lied. He cheated and he changed the wages. Where do you see that he wanted to destroy him? Listen to what Lavan says. The daughters are my daughters. The sons are my sons, and the flocks are my flocks. So if Yaakov had stayed with Lavan, what would have happened? Lavan would be very clear. Either he'll stay there till he dies. Who's going to own the children and the grandchildren? Who's going to own them? He has his whole culture there. It's his town. It's his people. Yaakov, you have crazy dreams. You have crazy dreams, right? They'll die with you. I will take it. My culture will take it. Your hopes and dreams will go down the drain. You're going to run away? I'll hold them back. You're not taking them with you. They're mine! You can't take them from me. I won't allow it. I have all the power. All the people in the town are on my side. You'll go by yourself. This will die. This is not going to be your possession. That was his goal. That you see from these psukim, because of this confrontation, it all comes out. That's, I think, is what the Haggadah means when it says Tzei Ulmad. Because without this confrontation, you never would have guessed this. You have to go back and look back and say, boy, did I see this in Lavan's intentions from the previous text? definitely not obvious that that was his intentions were so vicious, so fundamental, so deep to uproot the whole being of the people. Wouldn't have been obvious at all. Yeah.
I liked what you both worked out yesterday about this idea of Hashem setting these kind of stages to teach something. I was thinking, why is it that Hashem told Lavan to not say good or bad, but instead could have told him, don't go, don't chase after Jacob, stay home, leave him alone. But he caveated so that Lavan would go, but then we would get exactly this kind of controlled scene, which gives us what we need as the people who are reviewing this.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And noticing it in this case should put it as a category in your mind. Because Baruch Hu will do things in order to get reactions that he wants to be out in the open. In fact, the Rambam in the Morah says that the whole idea of a test is only to portray what people are supposed to believe or do. It should be portrayed. Test of Avram Avinu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew what Avram would do if he would tell him to sacrifice his son. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't need that Avraham should be told and carry it out. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like an observer, let's see what's going on in the beaker. Turn the fire up. Is it turning green yet? HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't need to know that. He knows the person's soul from the inside. No, but if he does it, then it becomes part of public history, public knowledge, and we can learn from that various things about how one can serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So all these things are to bring out these things into the open so that we can learn from them and benefit from them. Yeah.
I mean, just my question also is, so if this is not good or bad, what is it then? What is actually, because Lavan is telling certain things that seem to be kind of bad to Yaakov. So if he said, I can't tell you because your God told me not to tell you good or bad, then what is he telling him? I mean,
I understand good and bad there to mean no proposals for interaction. Don't threaten him that you're going to hurt him in some way, and don't try to benefit him. Don't do that. You can discuss why you did what you did and so forth and so on, but that's not good or bad. That's just when Jacob meets Esau. So first of all, Esau comes with 400 men, and they were not there to roll out the red carpet. They were there because he wanted to create a slaughter, and then there's this whole scene of reconciliation, and then Esau says, "Well, let's go together," and Jacob says, yeah. He says, thanks, but no thanks. And then he says, okay, maybe you want to, I'll leave you some of my men, they'll help you, they'll escort you. No thanks, no escorts, I don't need escorts. Please let me find favor in your eyes. I'll take care of my own self. Let's have a parting of the ways. Thank you very much. I don't want any permanent association with you. Right? And so I think the similar thing is going on here. I mean, it's going to happen. We haven't gotten to it yet. Okay? Fine. Okay, so now in the morning, this is 32, chapter 32, verse 1. Lavan arose early in the morning. We said arose means started the activities of the morning, early in the morning. And he kissed his sons and his daughters. And he blessed them, and he went. Now, there's a tiny, tiny little diuk here. I don't think that, no, Rashi doesn't bring it. But twice he says sons and daughters. Who are his sons?
Grandsons.
His grandsons, right? Because over here it only has daughters. But it puts the boys before the girls. Esau put the girls before everything. This is very consistent. And when Esau, we'll see it, and when Esau and Jacob and Yaakov talk back and forth, Esau puts the women first, and Jacob leaves the women out. Doesn't mention them. You see their interest and the position. So Lavan occupies a kind of intermediary position. I mean, they're his daughters. But he puts the grandsons first. That's just a little. Okay. Jacob went on his way, and Angels of God, we spoke about this 4 weeks ago. The word here, malach, means an agent. Agents of God, which we would call angels, to court, encountered him. Jacob said when he saw them, this is a godly camp. Yeah, it's a godly camp. It's a camp of angels, right? So he called the name of the place Machanoim. Okay, time for a test. Your helpful, friendly translator doesn't translate the word Machanoim, does he? He transliterates it, just gives you its sound. Why does he do that, do you think? What's the literal meaning of Machanoim? You know what an enantiomorph is? Probably not. Yodayim, Einayim, Oznayim, Nechirayim, Tzvatayim, Yadayim, Raglayim. What does ayim mean? Yodayim, Einayim, Nechirayim, Oznayim, Tzvatayim, Raglayim. What does the ayim ending mean?
Plural for masculine.
No. Doesn't mean plural. Doesn't mean plural.
Would it be a pair?
What is it? Again.
Organ or body part?
No.
I was thinking something.
This is failed.
You don't have it for your heart or your spleen or your brain, but you have it for your kidneys.
Pairs?
Yes, pair. It means pair. You have a pair of hands, a pair of eyes, and a pair of nostrils, a pair of lips, and a pair of legs. It means pair. Now, pair is tricky because they're not because it's what's called an enantiomorph, because your right and left hand aren't identical. Try putting your left glove on your right hand, and you'll notice right away that they aren't identical, right? They're not like twins, right? So there's a certain thing called, they're mirror images of one another. And those are called enantiomorphs. And the whole thing in topology, how you transform one into the other, if you can or you can't. Okay, it's a whole long story. Okay, but now, Machanoim should mean roughly twin camps, 2 camps, enantiomorphic camps, right? So how do you get from this is a godly camp, and therefore he called the name of the place twin camps? Really? He did? Like, so if he had translated it, the poor translator, into twin camps, the English reader would have said, what? Oh, well, this is the Bible. The Bible doesn't make sense. It's full of all sorts of, ramblings and illogical allocution. So here's where Rashi says that when Jacob left, we saw this when we spoke the dream of the ladder. When Jacob left the land of Israel, God showed him that outside the land of Israel, he would have a band of angels different from the ones that accompany him in the land of Israel. To accompany him, I call them lightheadedly the FBI angels and the CIA angels. Right? Now he's got the CIA angels with him. And now he's coming back, and the Israeli angels come to meet him. So there's twin camps because of the angels he has with him, plus the new camp of angels that he just encountered. And this is one of the places where you see that idea that he has 2 camps of angels can be used to make sense out of the text. There are those who want to say, well, he had his camp of his people, and now he saw this camp of angels, and it's 2 camps. But, that's like a hand and an ear. It's not like 2 hands. It's a gigantic difference between people and angels. So to use the term machanoim for that, I think is a little far. And if it's 2 camps of angels, then it makes a lot of sense. Okay. Now for the confrontation with Esau. Jacob sent angels before him, malachim, agents, to Esau his brother, the land of Seir, the land of Edom. And he sent a message to his brother. Now, malach just means agent. Prophets are called malachim. Indeed, God says to the Jewish people later, I sent you a malach in Egypt, meaning Moses. And he came down to help you. So malach could be a person. The word malach does not mean angels by itself. In context, it could refer to angels, but it doesn't have to mean that. So the question is, which malachim are they? So if you look at Rashi 4, it says malachim mamish, literally angels. The question is, why does Rashi say that? Who told him? Since it could mean otherwise. And the answer is very simple, that we read things in context. It isn't an accident that the story of meeting the camp of angels and giving the name to the place Machanoi because of the camp of angels met is it followed immediately by his sending Malachim. The one helps you interpret the other. And here I want to just warn you against something which we all suffer from. You saw at the end of a parsha. When you go through the Torah in the yearly cycle, there's a whole week between the two of them. And sometimes you just sort of lose the thread, and you don't think of associating what it says here with what it said last week. You have to pay attention. This division into the weekly cycle has nothing to do with the text. So, but that's where Rashi's getting it from. Say here. And I want you to know, some people translate the word malachim as messengers. That's not correct. A malach doesn't always take a message from one place to another. Malachim do lots and lots of things. Sometimes a message. Sometimes one malach came to heal Avram from the Bris Milah, and one came to destroy Stone. No messages at all. So to translate malach messenger is just not correct. They should be translated as agents. Okay, now he sends a message through them to his brother. He charged them, saying, "Thus shall you say." I don't see why they do this. Why do they punctuate it this way? 1 second here. I think there's a mistake. I do not know whether I think it's a mistake in the punctuation. I think in 5, it should read as follows. He charged them, saying, "Thus shall you say to my lord Esau." Now begins the single quote. The single quote doesn't begin before the word to. He's instructing them to speak to Esau. That's the end of the line. Then before the word so should begin the single quote. So said your servant Jacob, I've sojourned with Lavan and have lingered until now. I've acquired ox and donkey, flock, servant, and maidservant, and I'm sending them to tell my Lord to find favor in your eyes. Let's try to figure this out. What's been happening here? When did the last time they saw each other, Jacob and Esau? 20 years ago. What was going on when they saw them? Well, Jacob got the bracha, and Esau was very unhappy about that. And in fact, Esau was planning to kill him. To kill him, right? And his mother said, this doesn't look good. Really, you have to get out of here, and so on and so on. So he left, away for 20 years, and now he's coming back. How does Esau feel? Is Esau nursing a grudge, maybe? Has he forgotten it, in his late night parties? I mean, what's at least, Jacob should be cautious about this. She says to him, I'm sending a message. I've been away for a while because I was with Lavan and lots of things happened. I want you to know, Esau, I became very rich. Very rich. Phenomenally rich. In order to find favor in Esau's eyes. Really? Can you imagine Esau getting the message? Oh, I'm so happy for my brother. So lovely that he became rich. I'll send him a ticket to the Super Bowl. We'll sit there together. Why would he find favor in his brother's eyes by telling him that he's rich? Where is that coming from? This is what Rashi wants to explain. And he wants to explain a little bit more in terms of the. Let's go look at 6 then, because it's getting late. Maybe I'll go back to the previous one tomorrow. I've acquired ox and donkey, father said to me, that blessing that I got, the one you hate me for, the one you're going to kill me for, what does that blessing say? From the dew of the heavens, from the fatness of the land. That means agricultural success. But this, the cattle and slaves, which I'm telling you now I got, is neither from the heavens nor from the land. It doesn't go in the ground. So I'm telling you that the blessing that you so envy in me didn't come true. Didn't come true. Ox and donkey is the way of the world. To say, with reference to many oxen, ox just singular, you don't have to say it in the plural. And let's skip over to the next page, the fourth line. I'm sending to tell my Lord, what? To inform you that I'm coming to you. To find favor in your eyes, that I am well disposed towards you and seek your love. But the first thing he said, he wants to diffuse Esau's anger. I said, look, you're angry over the blessing that you say I stole from you. Well, it didn't come true. Now, you could interpret this in a number of ways. So it ended up being a misfire. Or maybe, if it didn't happen to me, and you nurse hatred of me because of it, maybe it is available to you. Maybe, in fact, it will come true for you. And indeed, Esau becomes a giant landholder in Edom, and is very successful there. So, at least we understand a little bit where he's coming from when he says, I find favor in your eyes. Find favor here means I'm reducing the animus. I'm reducing the cause of friction in your eyes, hopefully. And I'm looking for your favor. And of course, he starts his quote that it's supposed to be said is, so says your servant Jacob. He calls himself his servant. Now, he is the younger brother. So in that respect, maybe Esau sort of would find that natural, that he should, though he sold the birthright and everything else, but there's a similar attitude towards of Lavan and of the king of Sodom. Everything's mine. Everything belongs to me. I'm all in the right. Everybody else is in the wrong. So Jacob is diffusing that as best he can. Okay, let's leave it there.